to create the economic climate so we can bring business here and make a fulfillment of the wishes. You can't just bring scripts in here and say, hey, we got one to come and everybody else is going to come. They're going to come if the conditions are right, if they think the workforce is going to be there they need, if they think the state's generally headed in the right direction, and if they've got a good feel about where we're going. That's why when I give a talk and I outline what I think where Florida ought to be going, I will say I want to be and will be as the next governor, the chief economic development officer, and we're going to bring people together. We're going to build consensus. We're going to solve some of these really tough problems. We're going to do this, but we don't have to solve them all before industry and before capital comes here and so forth. All we have to do is have a roadmap, have a plan.
But let me ask a forward-looking question. If you got a lot of voters that are going to be looking at this race in November, and they're going to take stock. We've had the governor's mansion has been in Republican hands for the last 12 years, and the legislature has been in the hands of the GOP for the last 12 years. And some of the same challenges that you're outlining here are been kind of the same challenges we've been looking at.
Mr. Christ hasn't done the job in that regard that I think that he should have. He hasn't been out spending the time promoting the state, I don't believe. I mean,
you had a series of insurance reforms back in early 2007, and then we had a series of property tax reforms in 2007. They were approved by the legislature. It's not just the governor. The legislature went ahead and approved this stuff, and we put the constitutional amendment on the ballot on property taxes, and still we're at the mess here. So if you have a voter who's thinking, we've been hearing hearing about these challenges for the last 12 years, more or less, depending on who was hot at the time.
You can argue Republican versus Democrat in this, but I will tell you this. I think it's about people, about individuals, and about leadership. And I have that vision of where we're going to go. I think people are going to vote on who they believe can best lead this state. Who can best lead this state. And it's very important that we have that leadership. Somebody who has ideas, knows where they're going to go. If you want to go to the general election, Alex Sink and I disagree completely on litigation reform. She says we don't need any. I can tell you if we don't have it, it's going to be a huge problem. She and I differ on health care. For example, that big health care bill that Obama got passed into law is a train wreck for us. 27% of Medicaid today, 27% of the state budget, I should say, of general revenue goes to Medicaid right now. And it's projected to go up to maybe as much as 36% without that, and much higher with it. And there are hidden things in there that hold back the hands of the next governor or the next legislature or anybody else. For example, if I want to offer health insurance policies in the state that are more affordable, and we have over 50 mandates in our policies today, and I certainly, in my health care proposal, suggest that we ought to be reducing the number of those mandates and making more of them optional. So why should a 30-year-old male have to buy a breast cancer policy type of question? Why do we not have 10 or 15 that are in the base policy and the rest not? Well, the federal government comes along in this new legislation, and they're going to put the mandates in. They're preempting the states. They're going to tell us exactly how to do this. They're going to co-opt ever more of our money. And when you finish looking at this legislation, if it were to be fulfilled, and my lawsuit weren't successful to declare it unconstitutional, you're looking at a big question about where does the state get the money for education? Where's the state going to get the money for its foster care, for taking care of the prisoners, and so on, because of the tremendously increased consumption by Medicaid because of the eligibility increase on top of what we already have in Florida. So there are issues like that we are going to have tough issues to make choices on over the next few years, and you need leadership in Tallahassee that understands this, knows where we're headed, and generally is prepared to bring capital in here, venture capital, and solve these problems. I mean, we don't have enough venture capital.
But to follow up on Tony's question, you say in your speeches, and you said a few minutes ago, that we're such an overregulated state. Isn't that a terrible indictment of Republicans who have been governor and controlling the legislature? An indictment of Jeb Bush, for example. Why didn't he fix all that alleged overregulation?
Jeb proposed one-stop shopping in Tallahassee, and I don't know exactly what stage of his administration, but that's never been carried out. As governor, I will carry that out. I think we ought to have one place you go so that you can go to that place and you can get those things solved that you're going to go and not have to go looking for a number of other venues when you go up there, so you can get all your licensing done by going to see one person, basically.
But isn't that an indictment of Republican leadership, that there's all this overregulation after all these years of Republican leadership?
Well, you want to indict it all you want to, but do you think the Democrats are going to have less regulation? Do I really believe, do you really believe, does anybody really believe that President Obama and the Democrats are headed in the direction of less regulation? Heck, they're in the process of increasing taxes. They're in the process of increasing regulation. They're in the process of causing more problems. They don't recognize we need to have litigation reform. They won't admit that. They're a captive of their special interests, particularly the teachers' union and the trial lawyers. So, can you say the Republicans haven't done as well as I think they can or should do? I think with the proper leadership we will. You have term limits. We change every 8 years who's in the legislature. We have governors. We change. I think Governor Bush made great strides in education. I think we should applaud him for that. I think he did a terrific job for where we started from. And I'm ready to build on what he did. You can't say perfection immediately overnight. I'm talking about what we do going forward right now, what we need to look out and say, realistically, let's assess where we are, and here's what we need to do, and here's where I intend to take the state when I'm governor. That's what you want a candidate to do.
So Republicans are responsible for all this overregulation.
Well, I'm not saying they're responsible for it. You've got Democrats responsible for it too. Were we in office? Sure, they were in office. Some of them were. But I'm not going to say they were responsible for overregulation. I can just tell you that if Charlie Crist has left the Republican Party, I go to question, was he a Republican those 4 years? You want to blame the Republicans for Charlie for 4 years? Come on now.
You